Alrighty, welcome back. JSON, Ajax, jQuery. That's what we're doing. All right, we're doing part two for the build a quote machine for freeCodeCamp, the intermediate front-end development challenges. And we've got the HTML set. We've got a little bit of CSS in there. And now we're going to figure out how to make this whole functionality work. That's what we're doing right now. So I have some things to go over with you. So I'm going to start off by sharing my screen. And I'm going to bounce into, where am I at here? I got all this stuff going on here. Look at all this. It's like a crazy mess. Oh, there it goes. All right. We're looking at making an Ajax request to get JSON data from an API. Whoa, those are a lot of words, right? Let's take this back a step here. Let's first take a look at an API, okay? And you want to do a simple Google search, an application program interface, a set of routines, blah, 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 blah. That doesn't mean anything. Essentially, an API is like a mini plugin, all right, that we can use to gather some information. A lot of times APIs will spit back out some sort of data. Generally, that is an object of some sort. Remember, an object has a key value pairs. Depending on the request that we make, we might get many different kinds of data, and this object might be huge, or you might get bunches of objects. It just depends what we're doing. And the way that we get that is we use an Ajax, all right? Ajax, asynchronous JavaScript XML. That's what it stands for, in case you're wondering. And here's all kinds of documentation on Ajax. Essentially, we're making an Ajax request here. What are we doing? So there's an API out there on the internet somewhere that has information we want. We call them up and say, hey, give me this information. And they say, okay, here you go. And they give me back an object. All right. So that's an API and an Ajax request. And usually that object that we're talking about comes in the form of JSON data. All right, JSON data is just an object. However, sometimes we need to do something else because it doesn't work. We need a workaround. All right. Essentially, sometimes we need JSON-P data, all right, or JSON with padding. Again, that's just a workaround for cross-domain policies in web browsers, in case you're wondering what that is. Again, there's so much documentation on this, but that's well above the scope of this video. All I really want you to know is that we have an API here. All right, this API has an address. So here you go. So if I grab this and I go to this, wrong method. What is this? Essentially, it's just a static web address. All right. And you can see that we pass it some things that it's looking for. So here you go. It says method equals get quote ampersand. So that splits it, and it gives you a key. All right. So that's something that we're going to have to need. All right. This API doesn't require us to register to get a key. It's just giving us a static key that we can use. And it asks us for the format that we want. So in this case, it's asking for XML and language in English. So if I take this right here, copy. If I take this base right here and I give myself a question mark and then I paste that stuff. All right. Oops. Wrong spot. Question mark. Paste that stuff. There you go. I get a quote. Be faithful and all blah, 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 Mother Teresa, and where it came from. All right. And this data that I asked for was in a format that was XML. All right. So here's XML. So if I want to change this to JSON P, oh, it's not playing well with me right now. All right, well, give me a JSON data. There's JSON data. Quote text. You see we have an object here, key value pair, more key. All right, so you can kind of see what we're looking for here. And each one of these key values, like quote author is a key, and there's your value, Byron, whatever. Quote text being the key. Here's your quote text. All right. There's also other information like sender name, link, quote link, that kind of stuff. So that's essentially what we're doing here. We're just going to kind of take this stuff. All right, and we're going to this web page, for lack of a better term, for the server, and we're making a request, and it's sending us back a random quote in the form of JSON data. However, the JSON data is not really working, so I need to do something else. So JavaScript time. Now, JavaScript, vanilla JavaScript is, I don't know, I think that's too hard. there's a more efficient way to get this stuff done. And I'm going to use jQuery. All right, it's not the newest thing in the world, but it works and it's simple, and there's a lot of support for it. So when I get confused, which happens very, very often, I can do a simple Google search, Stack Overflow, easily find answers on any kind of forum that I want, and I'll get an answer pretty quickly because it's been around so long. There's been a lot of people that ask that question. So jQuery, there's a $sign. $sign means jQuery. That's it. And we have to get the document ready. So as soon as we load the page, run this script. So how do we do that? So document ready. All right, when that document's ready, we're just going to run a function. All right, and that's all we're doing is run a function. And there we go. And we need to open and close this. And everything that we're going to do here is going to go inside of this. Right? Everything we do in our JavaScript is going to be here. Now you can execute vanilla JavaScript or jQuery in here. It's fine. Let's start off by saying, okay, we know that I'm going to get some JSON data, or well, actually JSON P, because the JSON data when I tried didn't work. But whatever, same thing, looks the same. All right, so I know I'm looking for specific key value pairs. Okay, mainly quote text and quote author is really what I'm looking for. So I'm going to start off by setting some global variables that I can use anywhere. All right, so I'm going to set a global variable. One's just going to be a simple quote. And the other one is going to be author. And this is just a shorthand for var quote, semicolon, var, author, semicolon. There's no need to do that, okay? I don't have to do that. So I'm just going to do that in shorthand. So there we go. I'm going to have a quote and an author, and later on I'm going to set these to, after I make the Ajax request here, to this quote author and quote text. So, but I'm not going to do that right now. I know that I'm going to need another function that I'm going to have to define later that I'm going to use more than once. I'll call it get new quote. Get new quote. Get new quote is going to allow me to, well, make that Ajax request. All right, which is going to be important. And this here is going to do all the work that I need it to do. How do I do that? Well, I'm not even going to tell you yet. All you have to know is that I'm going to define this function, and then after I define the function, remember I want to be able to use it, right? So my program is going to start by getting new quote. All right. So this line right here runs this function. This just defines the function itself. This calls the function itself. All right. So that is good. All right, so let's just start with that right there, and let's take a look at defining this get new quote. How do we do that? All right, this becomes pretty easy in jQuery, or pretty easy to look up in jQuery even. So it's just, all right, so $.Ajax. All right, and here, we start here, and this is our syntax. Okay, and here's where we can do stuff inside of this Ajax request. All right, so this Ajax request here, I believe the syntax for this is a semicolon. It's not showing me an error. It'll run either way, but it's just good to keep track of this stuff. So in order to make an Ajax request, I could put in this link right here, and that should work. Should work. But for some reason it wasn't working, so I had to go an alternate route. But anyway, so usually you could just get away with URL, and you put in the URL, right? In this case, the URL was API something. There you go. This right here. Don't even try to just copy and paste it in. That's better. I like the copy and paste method. I know I'm not going to mess it up anywhere. There we go. All right. Comma. All right, and then this is because I know it doesn't work, so I'm going to switch to JSON P. So JSON P data is what I'm looking for, not simple JSON, because it's not working for me, which is frustrating. All right, and in order to make this work, you have to just set that equal to JSON P. This might look familiar if you got into some of the back end stuff where you set something equal to itself. That's okay. And then the last thing we need is data. All right, so we have the URL. We have to preface this whole thing by saying we want JSON-P, not JSON data. And then we want data itself. Now, data itself is going to be an object, okay? And notice that this object here is going to look something like this. All right, this object's going to look something like this. And we're going to be able to access those key value pairs. So what do we need here? It asks for a method. And how do I know this? It tells me here in this documentation, ask for a method, and you can kind of go through and see what we get, right? So we get response, quote text, quote author, sender name, quote. The method itself is get quote, method to name to invoke. So you actually want to get a new quote, you actually have to have a method get quote. You have to have a format and decide whether what you want in that format. This time we want JSON-P for the format. We're going to want a language. We can get Russian or English. I'll get it in English. I can always change it later if I feel a little punchy. All right. And then you also can have a separate callback for JSON-P that we don't need to use, but that's fine. So how do I declare all that? Well, I just got to tell everybody. Method is what they want. Method they called get quote. Okay. Comma. And the next thing they wanted was a language. A language here, we want English or Russian. I want English. And then the format. Format I'm going to be using is JSON-P. Save this. I'm going to go into my settings here and go to behavior because it's annoying me. And I'm going to get rid of this auto preview. I'll save and close that. Just because you can see this thing keeps trying to jump and repopulate itself there. All right. So this makes the request itself. All right. So this is part of my Ajax request. See how I open this up here and I kind of started with this URL, but I'm still within my closing brackets. So you can kind of see my start and stop here. All right. So there's my data object. There's my start and stop. Okay. So that's just for the data itself. So the next thing I need to do is determine, so I have a URL, I have JSON-P calling itself, I have data. Then I also have to tell it what to do when I actually get data back or success, right? So success, that's good stuff, right? That means I get data back. Well, if that happens, I need to do something with it, right? So I need to run a function inside of this function. So the function is get new quote, but I only run another function inside of it if I have success, if I get this data back, okay? And that function, an anonymous function, that's fine. And later on, you'll get into request and result. So usually you'll see something like if there's something you want to bring in this case, we already know that inherently because we're making an Ajax request. So it'd be REQ, and then your result would be, RES. So I'll just go with RES. So I want to take whatever result I get, which is going to be an object. I want to bring in that data, okay? And I want to do something to it or do something with it. All right. First, let's make sure this works. How about that? Let's console log this. Console.log. Sorry, yes, you can make this whatever you want. You call it ABC, big hairy dog if you want. It doesn't matter. Whatever you want to call it. All right, so let's take a look at this and let's console log this and see if our API is working before we go any further and see if I messed up. So I'm going to save. I'm going to run. And then I'm going to open up my console. And error does not compute. Why do I get error does not compute? Console log, JSON-P, format English data, get quote. All right, so let's save this. Let's see what it's doing. Let's take a look at these here. Get quote was working fine. Ajax, API, Formatic. All right. So what I'm going to do is we should be getting the correct data here. JSON P equals JSON P. Sometimes you're missing a comma, something like that. I'll come back afterwards here and clean this up. Why am I not console logging? So this is what I have on this one. I'm just going to go ahead and run this. Oh, you know what I didn't do? Maybe it's because I'm an idiot. I just didn't. Let me clear my console log. Sometimes you forget to save. And you run it. Uh-oh. Or you forget to save it and your network is glitching out a little bit. Oof. All right. Let's forget about that for right now. Hopefully this doesn't crash on me. My stream stays alive, actually. I'm on my school stream. So hopefully you can console log that and you should get this object data. Now your quote link and should be similar. You should get a quote text and a quote author that you can actually see when you do this. And it won't keep trying to automatically close down on you. Might be because I did it twice over there. Whatever. Anyway, so what do I want to do? So I have some success going on here right now. So that means that I'm ready to go. And then I can do something else with this. Remember these author and quote? Well, if you remember, I want to set these variables to those object names themselves, okay? So I want this quote variable. I'm just going to set that equal to, all right, the quote text. So the quote is going to be quote text, and the author is going to be quote author, okay? It's right here and right here. And I just got that right from this JSON format here. So my quote is going to be the quote text, okay? Now, quote text isn't really what I'm looking for. I need to target the data itself. And the data itself that's coming in from this Ajax request, all right, is this response here. So I need to say the response, then the quote text, okay? And I'm going to clear that, say okay. And then I also want to set the author variable that I made right up here equal to this response, not the entire response, but I'm looking for the key, okay? So the key itself, remember some of my other videos, if you actually watched them, if you name the key, they'll just give you the value for that. So you're trying to get the value, extract the value from that object. So you just tell it the key that you want. And this one is going to be quote author. It's quote author. Quote author. Okay. So right now we can do something kind of cool. If this is working. Let's see if is my console log gonna play with me. Save. Run. I call it get quote. Get new quote. Get new quote. Get new quote. Get new quote. So I have a syntax error somewhere, most likely, that is stopping me. Maybe not. It's blipping. Everything works when you do a test run. As soon as you try to turn on a, we're not console.logging this. Let's console.log. Let's save. It is not happy with me. It's not letting me get through here. How's my stream looking here? All right, I'm still broadcasting, it looks like. All right. So it wouldn't let me get out to Twitter either. So it must be more network settings on this, which is always fun. Like I said, I did this on my desktop, not on the Wi-Fi, so some things get blocked. Anyway, so I usually leave these console log things in to see if you're working or if you're having network issues, which I am on this particular laptop, which kind of sucks. Anyway, so I already have this set. If you test it, you should be able to see that pop up in your console log because your API should be working. Right. So now I'm just going to do some jQuery here. So right now I have success, and underneath my success here, if all this stuff works out pretty well, notice I'm still under this parameters of success here. So I'm in this function of if I do have success, I want to take this and take the ID. Okay. It's ID of quote here, which is this p tag. And I want to replace that. So I'm going to go right here at this quote p tag. All right. And this belongs in parentheses here. So right there at that p tag, I want to add in text. And that text, I just want to add in the quote. And that's going to allow me to add in the quote from that text. Okay. So there we go. And if I save this, I should be able to run my console clear. Sorry about that. I didn't tie in my buttons yet. What should happen is if it's working, this will pop in here. But like you see, even my console, either I have a error here that I can't see right now, or it's my Wi-Fi. So it's even blocking some stuff before, even on what I actually have running, which is strange because I have it. Yeah. All right. I even have it up and running on my other machine. So why don't we come over here and see if I can't diagnose this problem real quick. So what's good about this is that I can show you some live troubleshooting here. So here's the one that I just finished building, all right, that I'm teaching you off of right now. And what I can do with this one is I can actually see that I'm working here. And I can test this here. And we are right in here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start right from this function new quote. And I'm going to go down to here's a function new quote down to there. And let's see if I can fix a syntax error without actually looking at it, which is what I want to do. All right. I'll save, I'll run. There we go. So I had a syntax error somewhere. All right, so I was overlooking a syntax error. I might have forgot data type in here, possibly. I don't know. It happens sometimes. Anyway, let's see. There we go. My console log is still being annoying. So I'm just going to close it. There's your object data that you should be able to see. So take a look at this, and let's see where I was missing JSON data type. I might have had a typo with data type, actually. It doesn't matter. It's fixed now. So take a look at yours and try to figure out where that one actually is. Anyway, so here's your get quote and tweet quote buttons. All right. And you can see that once I run this, all right, I get a new quote. Okay. We have an issue here. All right. So we have this all set up. We've got our get quote ready to go. That works nicely, right? However, what about the author itself? If you noticed on some of these, when I was clicking through, some of them don't actually have an author. So what I want to do is I want to make a statement here. So author equals our response dot quote author, right? So that means that this object for author, if I open up my console, doesn't matter, it's not going to work. Anyway, all kinds of technical problems today, guys. I'm sorry about that. Anyway, so my author equals the object here for quote author. So what happens if there's nothing there? All right, I actually want to display something. So if you remember if statements, so this right here, if this is true, that means it's not an empty string. If this right here doesn't have an author, it's going to return an empty string, and author is going to equal an empty string, which would mean this is false, right? So if this is true, or not false, all right, all I want to do is do the same thing I did right here, okay? I just want to do some jQuery, all right, and at this author, okay, is what I called it over here. All right, so I have author ID on this p tag at this author. All right, I'm going to add in text. And the text I want to add in this time, though, I don't just want to put the author's name. I actually want to write in here author space, and then I want to add in the author itself. Okay. All that's going to do is just say like the author and its name. However, if I have an if, then you should probably have an else, right? So else author is an empty string. So if author is an empty string, I want to do something else with it. If it's an empty string, jQuery, all right, at that same spot, at that author ID, I want to add in text. And that text, I just want to say something to the tune of author unknown. Okay. Just so it looks nicer and doesn't bounce around as much. So there's always a placeholder there, so my sizes don't change too much. I mean, it's going to change anyway with the size of the quote itself. So let's save. Let's run. Let's grab this, and every time I run, I will get a yeah. Check it out. We're working pretty good here. All right. There's some things I don't like. When the quotes are really long and they're going from edge to edge, and we can clean that up with CSS in a little bit. So we run our program, and we should be good to go. Now we just have to make our buttons work. So here is our entire get new quote program. There's our variables that we used, and all we did is say run it at the beginning of the page. Okay. However, I also want to run it when you click a button, okay? When you click that get quote button. So I also made get quote, if you remember, that was a class as well. So when I can actually target that, right? And I called that button something, right? I called it get quote, and that was my get quote button. I gave it a name so I can grab it later in jQuery. So here on, so whenever I click it, this has to be in annoyingly on click, right? What happens when you click it? Well, I want to run a function, right? And there is a little piece of something that you can do to fix some of this jumping around. You can do this. Again, yay, help from internet people and Stack Overflow for just telling you to put this little chunk in, which is actually adding something, a parameter into this function that says just events, and then you can just call events dot prevent default. All right. And what this is going to do is every time you click these buttons, sometimes you have to scroll down and get the quote. and it's going to keep jumping to the top of the page. We don't want it jumping around if you're on a smaller screen. So that prevents that. Again, I just looked that one up and copy and pasted that. Had no idea that that was even that thing. All right, so kind of something new I learned on this one. It's kind of neat. All right. So basically, on click, all right, prevent default, and then I just want to run get new quote. That's it. All right. So how do I do that? Same thing. I just want to run this. So you start the page, you run this. Then if you click on the button, run it again. Cool. That seems pretty straightforward there. So get quote on click. All right, so there we go. There's one piece done. So let's save that. Pull up what we have. So now every time I click this, there we go. Didn't work again for a second. But here we go. Again, that's more my computer. And all right, see, I still don't like this goes all the way up to the edge. We're going to fix that with some fancy CSS. Okay, so what happens if we click that button that I called tweet quote? Okay, so I called this button tweet quote, and it's a class. How do I target that class tweet quote? Same thing. Do some jQuery. And just watch out for syntax errors, even though I've made quite a few already. They'll really frustrate you. And again, on what? On a click. And again, that's just jQuery magic for shortening things that we can use. I'm going to use this same function event, and then event.prevent default. See, typos. And default. All right, cool. So right now, when we click tweet a quote, though, we don't really just want to reload the page. We want to do something else. So here's where you would go to the API. Let's look at Twitter API post tweet thing. Twitter developers page. That's what I was looking for. And you can go in here and Twitter development documentation. There's all this kind of stuff for how you can use Twitter and go through and use this. Now, a lot of times, like you can go through here and figure out how to do all kinds of stuff. Okay, but I'm not really concerned with that. I'm just going to show you how to use it because it's easier. Essentially, all you have to say is window.open, so it opens a new window. All right, so you click the tweet quote button, you're going to open a new window, and you're going to go somewhere. Where are you going to go? Well, I'll show you where we're going to go. We are going to go to, and this is where you can go through and embed a tweet. And again, since I found it before, I'm just going to go back down here, and I'm going to go to this, and then I'm going to explain what this is. Let's see. And then you can copy it because I'm not going to type it out. Because if I have another typo, I'm going to scream. All right, so here you go. You have HTTPS, so it's secure, twitter.com, intent, tweet. And then again, you see how you have this little question mark? That's going to tell it to do something else, just like in our API. So text equals, okay, and then they want you to write out the text. However, our text is our quote, and our quote right now is in a text form. So I could just say quote. Plus, you can add another ampersand, hashtags, and add hashtags in. And whatever you say here, so mine, I just said inspiration. You could say Michael Myers. You could say whatever you want in there. It'll add that hashtag automatically for you. It's really cool. All right, so that's really neat. So let's grab that. And then since I didn't make any syntax errors because I copy and pasted it from what I know already works, that I just figured out, this morning, we should be good. So let's see if this wants to work for me. Twitter wasn't opening, remember. So there's something. Yeah, see, Twitter's still not working for me. Sweet. Do. All right. Hey, I like that. Let me tweet it. Oh, there it goes. Haha. It worked. Just had to wait 20 minutes. Your destiny isn't just fate. Hashtag inspiration. Check that out. Pretty neat, right? There's a problem, though. There's a problem we're going to fix. And we're going to do that next time. The problem is if you have a really, really long quote, it's not going to fit in Twitter. Okay, so at this point, we actually have a working quote, tweet, and you could be done. All right, there we go. It's starting to work now. It's letting me through. So if this is good enough for you, you could probably just stop here, but it's not good enough for me. If you have a really long tweet, it's going to fill out your entire tweet. You're not going to have any room for any hashtags, that kind of thing. So I want to limit this to a certain length, and then I want to go back in and do some CSS magic in here to prevent this from going all the way to the edges. All right, so I think that's pretty long for right now. So I'm going to finish this up next time because it's been a really long video. I've already started making some syntax errors, so I'll come back and take a rest and then come back at this. So hopefully this was helpful, and then again, I will see you next time.